Welcome to Studihub Digital Academy Masterclass for Web Development. In this class, we'll go over all you need to know to get started as a web developer. And I'm sure you might be watching this because you have a desire to start your own business or get a job as a web developer or even use it as a lucrative side hustle. Then not to worry because your time will be well spent in this class. To ensure that you benefit maximally from this class, I personally advise that for the next 40 minutes, you ward off any distraction because this video, the content of this class might just be the stepping stone you need to change your career. So, are you ready? Let's begin. Now, my name is Ezo Ojile Desmond, and I am a full stack web developer here at Studihub. I have over 5 years cumulative experience in web development and business, working majorly as a freelance developer. I have expertise ranging from web technologies such as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, Laravel, and Angular. But within this class, we'll focus majorly on front-end web development technologies. Now that you have an idea of who I am, let's get talking about what you'll be learning within this class. So first off, you will be learning what is web development. You will learn who a web developer is, the types of web developers, the technologies needed in web development, why you need these technologies, how much does a web developer earn? Is web development lucrative? Is it really lucrative in 2020 or 2021? How are you going to use a code editor? How are you going to write HTML? How are you going to write CSS? You would learn also how to build your own static website. That would be a project that would come at the end of this class. By the end of this class, you should be able to build your first static website using HTML and CSS. Finally, those who stay to the end of the video would get an exclusive one-time offer. So let's begin. Do ensure that you stay to the end of the video. What is web development? Now, web development is the process of building a website or a web application that you need to put on the internet. It is that simple. So now, the next thing that we are going to look at is who is a web developer? From the definition of web development, we can tell that a web developer is someone who builds websites or web applications, but he uses his or her knowledge of web technologies. We will be talking more about web technologies as we progress in this course. But for now, we should have in mind that the modern websites we visit are very different from the ones we used to see years back, as far back as 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even that 2005, 2007 period. A lot of things have changed, and these changes have brought about different specializations in web development. Currently, we have different types of web developers. We have the front-end web developer, we have the back-end web developer, we have the full-stack web developer. Now, these specializations are unique, and we're going to be talking about each of them in more detail. So we'll start with the front-end web developer. But before we begin talking about the front-end web developer, it's important to note that there are three different parts of a modern web application. Three major parts. There are a lot of other parts, but there are three major parts of a modern web application. Now, we have the user interface, we have the business logic, and we have the databases. Now, the user interface part is the part we see and interact with as users. For instance, as a user, if you visit facebook.com, google.com, youtube.com, the part you interact with, where you move around, you click a button, you click on a form and you try to fill it, you are interacting with that website. That part you interact with is the user interface. Now, the business logic is the part that makes the website function as a business. So a user cannot see or interact with the business logic. Technically speaking, you cannot interact with it. It's the special program that is written to ensure that the website or web application carries out its business function. For instance, the business logic for Facebook could be the code that would help you find a friend. When you type in the search bar the name of your friend, the code that runs in the background that helps you search for your friend anywhere on Facebook, the code that helps you connect with your friend, the code that helps you share pictures. These are different parts of business logic. So, business logic code is usually written and kept on a specialized computer called a server. We'll talk more about that as we progress. So, the next part is the databases. Now, when a user visits a website, he generates data. When you visit a website and you fill a form, you put your name, your email, your password, you have provided the user with data and you have provided our website with data. How is that data handled? That's where we talk about databases, how the data is stored, how it's managed, and how it's delivered. Is it how is the person structuring it to be edited, deleted, or how is data created? That's what we are going to be talking about in databases. And these are the three different parts of a modern web application. Now we have the idea of the three different parts of a modern web application. We are going to see how these three parts connect with the different specializations in web development that we have today. So the first part is the front-end developer. Who is a front-end developer? A front-end developer is someone who works on code for the user interface, who builds the user interface. He builds the user interface. So when you visit a website and you see that, wow, this website is fine. I like the way it looks. I like the way it feels. The person who wrote the code for that website is a front-end developer. That specialization allows the person to focus on purely how the user interacts with a website. That's what a front-end developer does. So I have a diagram here that explains in detail how the entire thing works. Now remember we talked about a server. A server is a specialized kind of computer that stores stores information. It can store any kind of information. It can store files. It can store documents. It can store different kinds of files, audio, video, anything that you can think of can be stored on a server. And it can also run programs. That's the simplest way I can explain what a server is to you. It's a specialized computer located somewhere else that can store, run, can even execute programs. So now, when you visit a website, websites are usually stored on servers, servers that might belong to the person who owns the website or might belong to somebody else. But a website is stored on a server. Now, when a user visits a website or wants to visit a website, what happens is that the user makes a request to get a copy of that website to their computer. So this user makes a request to get a copy of the website. Let's say you make a request for studihubacademy.com and this website is delivered to the user. Now, when you see what is being delivered to you, what you see, the files that are being delivered to you are all built by a front-end developer. The file that the part of the website that you can interact with here are all created by the front-end developer. So as we progress, I will show you some images that distinguish between front-end development and back-end development and even full stack. So let's proceed. Now we'll look at who a back-end developer is shortly. Who is a back-end web developer? A back-end web developer is somebody who works on code that would run on the server. That is the business logic code. He creates the connection between a website and a database. Remember, we talked about databases. Well, that's just saying in general that he ensures that data that the user will provide on a website would get properly handled, stored, and secured so that anytime the user visits that website again, the data can easily be provided back to that user. Just imagine if you visit the website and each time you visit the website is asking you to register again, even after you've registered before, because they didn't handle your data well. That would be very frustrating. And I'm sure you would never visit that website again. So to summarize, a web developer, a backend developer, sorry, is somebody who works on code that would run on the server. He or she works on the business logic of a website, and he or she manages the database for web applications. Now, I just felt like letting you know the difference between a server and a cloud. So the server refers to a specialized computer that stores and can run programs. That's simple definition. And the cloud is a group of servers that have connections to the internet. So in very simple sense, you can describe the cloud as just a bunch of computers like have internet access, so I can literally access the server from my phone. The server can be in your room and it's not connected to the internet and it will work just fine. But once it's connected to the internet and there are many servers together, it's referred to as the cloud. And this cloud is usually owned by major corporations, big corporations like Google, Microsoft. That's why I have Microsoft Cloud, Amazon Cloud, and many others. Now we would look at who a full stack developer is. But let's look at these images that explain what front end and back end web development looks like. So front end development, as you can see from here, the beautiful thing that you see in front of you, but you don't see the thing that is in the background that is making this thing work. This ugly looking thing that is at the background is what is making this girl float in the water. Is what's able to make her move through water. That's what makes her who she is. So this is just the front end. Although it's not a perfect description, but it throws some light. Then we have this again. The front end is what we see, and the back end is the thing that makes what we see work. So that's how important back end developers are. Now we'll talk about full stack developers. A full stack developer. A full stack developer is someone who has an overlap of the skills of a front end developer and a back end developer. That's who a full stack developer is. Now, this is something like this. He has skills in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and most front end technologies. And he also has knowledge of back end technologies such as Java, SQL, Ruby, PHP, and so many others. So he has an overlap of these two skill sets. He has some experience, meaning that he can build user interfaces, he could write back-end code, he could manage databases, and most times he even has an in-depth knowledge in cybersecurity, that's web security. So the truth is, there are so many things out there to learn. So many. That's just the truth. But we are looking at what would make you seem very attractive both to employers and potential persons who would hand you jobs as a freelancer. So employers are looking for persons who possess T-shaped skill sets. What do I mean by T-shaped skill sets? T-shaped skill sets means that you have experience in some other technologies, but you have decided to specialize in one, and you are so good in one that you go deeper than the average person. That's the kind of skilled persons that most employers are looking for. Because these persons, when they are giving jobs, when they are giving projects, these persons can handle them beyond the scope of another person who is just knowledgeable in one area and one area alone. He or she knows how to adapt because he has knowledge and experience in other fields. So he's always a very valuable person. He or she is also a valuable person in any team that they join. Now let's look at something very important. How much can a developer earn? Is all this that we are talking about, is it really lucrative? How much can a developer earn? So I could just go straight to the point and just tell you how much I know many persons earn, how much I have earned as a freelancer, designing websites for persons, for businesses. But I would like to give you some statistics that I got from credible sources such as glassdoor.com and mysalaryscale.com. So let's look at glassdoor.com. So glassdoor.com has done a survey of a lot of persons who, if you, first of all, if you don't know what glassdoor.com is, it's a website where you can go and search for jobs. So people can go here and find jobs. Employers come here and they post jobs. So glassdoor.com also conducts surveys and asks persons who have gotten jobs or persons who have signed up on their platform, how much is your salary? Please tell us your salary anonymously. We won't tell your company. Nobody would know. Just tell us. So from the survey, we figured out that in Nigeria, the average developer earns about 2.4 million naira. That's about 2,400K per year. 2.4 million naira in Nigeria. So you can see that on average, from an entry-level developer to a mid-level developer, you can earn somewhere around 200K per month, 2.4 million naira per year, or average down to about 200K per month. So that might not seem like a lot, but let us look at something else then. I explain why this is essential and valuable. So this is from a survey from another platform called mysalaryscale.com, where they asked 30 employees how much an entry-level developer salary is in Nigeria. So the average response totaled up to 103,000 naira per month for persons who have 0 to 2 years experience. Now, mind you, persons who have 0 to 2 years experience, that means persons who do not even have any experience at all. They have just learned and they have worked on personal projects and now they are looking for jobs. They can get a job and earn as high as 103,000 naira per month. Personally, I know persons who earn as high as 150,000 naira per month working for different firms, working in a startup, working for organizations that have existed for quite some time. Even if you want to earn as an intern, as a web developer intern, you can earn somewhere around 76,000 naira. Mind you, I am just giving you these figures based on Naira and Nigeria. I do not want to give you figures from abroad, because if I do give you figures from abroad, many of you might not seem to believe it, but it is true. Persons earn as high as $4,000 every single month working as web developers from Nigeria to foreign companies. Yes, it is very, very possible, and it just takes certain steps to get to that point. So let's just proceed from here. So now that we know about the salary range, we should bear in mind that you can learn web development within a year, master it within a year, and get a job, or start working as a freelancer and start getting gigs from Nigeria or from abroad. Please always bear that in mind. It is something that is very, very feasible with the right kind of guidance. You can do it. It's very, very easy and very achievable. So, mind you, it's not easy. It's challenging, but it's very achievable. So let's proceed. Now, let's take a look at what a front-end developer role looks like. I got this post from glassdoor.com it's a job post by a company called Softcom. I think their office is in Lagos. They are looking for a front-end developer. And they said, we're looking for a front-end developer to become an integral part of our team, in addition to building and maintaining our HTML, CSS, and JavaScript architecture. He or she must be able to work in a fast-paced environment while solving complex problems on the fly. So this gives you an idea of what a front-end developer job looks like. First of all, the person needs to have an understanding, a knowledge, and some experience in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because these are core web technologies. And the person must have a desire to solve problems, because it's challenging. If you should be able to solve problems, because web development is about problem solving. So if we even read further, it tells us that the person must exhibit a drive for personal growth. I know that you have the desire to grow personally, develop yourself personally. That's the reason why you are here today and you want to learn web development. So you have taken the right step, and you are going to continue and develop yourself. And this is something that I know will benefit you on the long run. So let us proceed. So this is an additional that extra details that you can look at to see what the job requirements are, what the person needs to know, what the person needs to do as a front-end developer. You could pause this video and look at them one by one, but I'm not going to take everything one by one, so I would respect your time. Let us proceed. So now, what is a website? So to simply put, a website is a collection of related web pages hosted on a server. That's the simplest way I could describe a website to you. So it is a collection of related web pages that are hosted on a server. Now, these web pages are built using web technologies. Let us see what web technologies are and how we can begin to use them. So, web technologies, what are web technologies? These are technologies that are needed to build a website. That's how simple it is. Web technologies are technologies that you need to build a website. They're like the fundamental building blocks for a website. There are several web technologies out there, and even as we speak now, they are working on new web technologies that are going to make these current web technologies that are available out there old. But there are some fundamental web technologies that are going to be there for a very long time, because these are the essential building blocks for every website that you see out there. And these technologies are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Remember when we looked at the job posting, it mentioned that you need to have a knowledge in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the core technologies that you need to know to be able to build, manage, create, do anything that has to do with the web. You have to know, have a knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the core web technologies that you need to know. So let us proceed. Now, to begin building websites, you need two fundamental tools to begin building websites. You need an up-to-date web browser, and you need a code editor. So here are some examples of popular web browsers that you might be familiar with. We have Safari, we have Mozilla Firefox, we have Google Chrome, we have Microsoft Edge, and we have Opera Mini. So some persons pronounce it as Opera Mini, Opera Mini, they're all correct. So these are some popular web browsers out there that I'm sure you that is watching this, you might have one of these web browsers already installed on your computer or your mobile device. Now you need a web browser to build a website, because the website has to run somewhere. So the web browser is the software that runs your web files. So you need an up-to-date web browser so it can run them, or it can display them, read and display them correctly. Now, secondly, you need a code editor. Now, code editors like Atom, Visual Studio Code, and Bracket. So this is Atom. Please forget this VS Code. I made a mistake here. I didn't see it enough earlier. I would have corrected it. So this is Atom, ATOM, ATOM. And the current the code editor that we are going to be using for this class is going to be Visual Studio Code. Now, the reason why we are going to use Visual Studio Code, personally, I recommend Visual Studio Code, is because it's a very rich code editor. It has a lot of extensions in its library of extensions, up-to-date extensions, powerful extensions, and it is built by the Microsoft team. So it's always updated. You would enjoy using Visual Studio Code. So let us progress. So now that we know the two essential tools that you need to begin building websites, I'm sure you already have a code editor installed, and you already have a web browser installed. If you do not have a code editor installed, please visit code.visualstudio.com and install Visual Studio Code. It is absolutely free. Install it so that you can tag along while we get into the practicals towards the end of this class. So let us proceed. Now, let's talk about HTML. What is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. But before we get to that, let's discuss a little about this guy here that we see on the screen. So this guy here is Tim Berners-Lee. He founded the web. He is the person who is responsible for everything that we see on the web today. He literally created the web by merging two technologies that were already existing. He created the World Wide Web. He invented HTML that we are using today, that is the skeleton of the web. Without HTML, you would not be able to display documents, text on the web. So HTML initially wasn't an adopted markup language. It was in a competition between there was a competition between HTML and XML before many persons adopted HTML, and it became the standard for standard web technology for the web. So let's talk about HTML in detail. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is the standard markup language used for documents on the web. The purpose of HTML is to tell the browser how a web document should be displayed in a web browser. If you do not understand what a markup language is, I will just briefly explain it here. A markup language is one that is used to format a text document. Format in the sense that it's a language that tells the computer how it should display a particular document. You can tell a document, a plain text document, you can tell the browsers and say, please, I want you to display this first line of this plain text document in bold. I want you to display these 3 lines as bullet points. That's what a markup language does. It helps define how a document should be displayed. Many markup languages exist, but the one that is the standard markup language for the web is HTML. There are other platforms where you have different markup languages that work. Like initially I mentioned XML. So XML is also a markup language. Now let us progress. So with that in mind, you should know that HTML, always remember that HTML is used to format text that will be displayed on a web browser to a user. So HTML is not a programming language at all. HTML is not a programming language. And if you want to write HTML, you would write it in a file and you would name the file .html. So HTML is written in an HTML document and the file ends with the extension .html. Just the same way you have different files with different file extensions. Files like your music file could have an extension of .mp3. Your video file could have an extension of .mp4, .mkv, .avi. There are so many. Your image file could have an extension of .jpg. So this file extension for a web document, for a HTML document, for a HTML document is .html. So you can test out this thing on your own. If you have a picture, change that picture with the file extension .jpg. Remove that .jpg and replace it with .html and see what happens. You will notice that that particular image, that particular file would change, the icon for that file will change, and it will be showing the icon for a web browser or a code editor. That will be the default file that will be available to open up that new file that you have created. So let us proceed. Let's see how you can write actual HTML. So HTML is made up of tags. Now, these are the tags. Now, these tags tell the browser how it should display content of a document, how it should display the content in a document. It has an opening tag and it has a closing tag. Now, the content is what is in between the opening tag and the closing tag. So what happens is that the content that needs to be formatted, that goes in between this opening tag and closing tag, the browser would read through the content, read through the document, because the browser reads, or computers in general read from left to right. So it reads like this, and it goes here, and it sees the HTML tag that you specify. So let's say you want to make the content that is inside of here bold. It reads like this and comes to this point and says, oh, there is a bold tag here. So that means everything that starts from this point within this place is going to be bold. So it comes like this. It makes this entire content bold, and it stops here because this is the closing tag. So technically, that is how it is presumed to work. That is how it works to display your document. So we are going to see a demo on how this is going to work practically. So please bear in mind or always remember that HTML gives instruction to the web browser on how a web page should be displayed or rendered. Always remember that. Now, these are some examples of tags I selected. There are so many HTML tags. I think there are about 100 and something HTML tags. There are so many, but I would give you just this few. We'll get into more details on most of the useful HTML tags, tags that you'll be using frequently whenever you are creating a website, building a website, or writing a web document. But we're just going to look at these tags one by one. So this is the P tag. I call this the P tag. What it does is that it specifies a paragraph. So you notice that a tag starts with an angle bracket. I call them an angle bracket, but you could refer to them as greater than or less than because that's what many persons are used to seeing them as. So we have this here, which is the less than sign, and we have the P and the greater than sign. So this forms a tag with the opening angle bracket and the closing angle bracket and the tag within it. Then this is forms an opening tag and this forms a closing tag. The only difference is that there's a forward slash before the P or before the alphabet inside of the tag. That's just the only difference. It's not complicated. I hope it doesn't seem complicated because I'm going into so many details. But this is how you write a tag. It's very simple, just like this. And whatever goes inside of this place would be rendered as a paragraph. This is a B tag for bold. Whatever goes inside here would be rendered in bold form. This is an I tag, italic. Whatever goes inside of here will be italicized. So this is HTML tag. This is the default HTML tag. This specifies or this tells the web browser that whatever is in between these tags is an HTML document. That is what it is. So this is the body tag. This tag tells the document or tells the web browser that whatever is inside of here should be displayed to the web browser or should be displayed to the user. That is the body. It's just like the body of the letter contains the contents that you need to read. So this is the title tag. So the title tag tells the title of a web page. So just like any web page you visit, if you visit it using your computer, you will notice that on each tab of the browser, there is something at the top that gives you details on what that page is all about. That's what this tag is for. It's the title of a web page. Now we have the div tag. This is a wrapper element. A wrapper element it helps you enclose or create blocks of code. We are going to explain all this in more detail when we get into our practical. So let's proceed. So this is an example of what it would look like. We have the H1 tag. The H1 tag, by the way, it's a heading tag, just like the way we have heading. If you use Microsoft Word very well, when you are writing a document, you can highlight the document and you go to styles and you can select heading and you can select title. So when you select heading, you would notice that it has heading 1 and heading 2. Heading 1 is usually bigger and heading 2 is usually smaller than heading 1. Same thing applies here. H stands for heading. So heading 1 and heading 2. So we have H1 down to even H5 or H6. So this H1 is the largest form and it's going to make this boy appear as a very big, bold heading. That's what it's going to do. Now we have a P tag and we have a B tag. Remember we mentioned that the P tag stands for paragraph and the B tag stands for bold. So what it's going to do here is that it's going to create a new paragraph and it's going to make the text bold. So this is the closing tag for the B and this is the closing tag for the P. So you notice that the B tag is inside of the P tag. So now we also have the italic, or the tag that is going to make everything italicized. So this is the boy is going to be in italic form. Now we have the p tag here again. I intentionally placed these two on the same line so you notice what a paragraph really is. So this is a boy that ends with full stop, and this is Studihub Digital Academy that also ends with full stop. They are all written on one line. Normally, when they are going to be displayed on the browser, you would assume that because they are written on one line, they would all appear on a straight line. But because you have specified that they should be in a paragraph, it will create a new paragraph. That means you to take this one down here. So we also have these texts that do not have any formatting. They don't have any formatting, any prior formatting at all. So what's going to happen is that the browser is just going to display them on one straight line because you have not told the browser how it should display them. So it's just going to display them by default, how it wants to display them. So this is what everything should look like. Can you see it? This is what everything should look like here. So we have the heading one, which is the boy, and we have the boy in a very bold text here. We have the paragraph and the bold, and we have a new paragraph. There's a space. That's why you have this space here. There's a new paragraph. This is a boy, and it's in bold. Now we have a new paragraph, a new tag also, an italicized tag, and this is a boy, is in italic, is slanted. So we also notice that this is a boy that is on a straight line, with this is Studihub Digital Academy that are on the straight line are no longer on the straight line because you specify that they should be on separate paragraphs. So this is a boy with full stop, and this is Studihub Digital Academy on separate paragraphs. Now we have this one, two, three, four. Remember they are nexted here. But if you notice here, they are on one straight line because they don't have any formatting. You didn't tell them to be separated by a paragraph. You didn't specify if they should be bolded or something else. So they are by default displaying on one straight line. Now let us look at a demo, a live demo. So let's open our code editor and see how we can test this out.
It is easy to create an HTML document. First, to help you see everything that I'm doing without the clutter of other files, I have created a new folder in my desktop, in my computer, inside the documents directory. So you can see it here. The name of the folder is called Project WebD. Now, inside of this folder, you can still do it anywhere. You can even do it on your desktop. Inside of this folder, you can create a new file, a new text document. Now, the reason why we have to use a text document is because text document comes without any formatting. Remember, we said that HTML allows you to add formatting to a document. So if a document already has formatting, it's not going to work. Word documents such as Microsoft Word, Google Docs, and many others all come with their own kind of formatting, so they don't allow you to do that. So we can do it here by creating a new text document, and let's say we name that text document. We name the text document test. So now we have a text document. If we open up this text document, we notice that it is still a text document. We can change the format of the text document by coming here to save as, and we'll change this to all files, and we'll now add a file extension to that text document as HTML. So we now have test.html. Let's see what happens when we do that and we save. You notice that there is a new document here called test.html, and it tells us that it's it's a Chrome HTML document. It has 0 bytes because obviously we haven't written anything inside. And you notice that it has the Chrome browser icon. This tells you that this document is ready to be opened by Google Chrome. You can easily open it by using Google Chrome. So if I double tap on this now, boom, it opens up the text document. But you notice here that there was nothing on that Chrome document that I opened because we haven't written any code. Now we can open this document also using our code editor, Visual Studio Code. So if we open this document using Visual Studio Code, I know it might seem a little bit complicated for some of you who have never used this, but don't worry. In our class, we detail every single thing. We are going to explain how you can master Visual Studio Code with all the extensions and so many other things. So you have here, you have the HTML document and you have the text document. You can see their file extensions here. Like mentioned, we talked about file extensions earlier, just like MP3, MP4, and JPG. So we have the text file extension here. So it's that easy. Let me show you a different way you can create um, another HTML document, but this time around, we will just use um, Visual Studio Code. So I'll open back, I'll open Visual Studio Code again, and we will just tap here and we'll create a new document. We'll call it test2.html and save. Now, well, as we have created this document, we can close it and we notice that test2 comes out here as test2.html. So it's that simple for you to create an HTML document. It's very easy.
Now let's talk about CSS. So by now, I am sure you can see how easy it is to begin writing HTML and you understand how it works. With that in mind, I am confident that we can now move to CSS. You might not know everything in HTML, but this has given you a fundamental idea of what HTML is and how you can write it. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It's a language used to describe the style of a document like HTML. Note that I made the word style in all caps. This language is used to describe the style of a document, how a document should be styled. More like, in essence, it's trying to add beauty to the HTML document. How are you going to style the document? Do you want to add extra features to that document? Let's say that text that you made bold. Do you want to make that text have a background color of red? Do you want to make that text move to the right by 3 pixels, or do you want to make that text you want to replace that text with something like an image? You want to make that text blink? You want to make that text. There are so many things you can do with CSS. So CSS adds style. It makes a web page beautiful. So when you see a web page, what is responsible for that beauty that you are seeing is CSS, cascading style sheet. CSS is very, very powerful. And throughout our course, we are going to go in depth into CSS because this is the core thing you need to understand. CSS, then JavaScript, that you need to understand to be a really good, or what they refer to as a badass front end developer. You need to understand CSS and love it. So that's our goal. We're going to make you love CSS. Let's proceed. So here is how you write CSS. This is this very simple syntax for CSS. You have a syntax such as this. We have the selector, we have the property, we have the value. I'm going to explain what each of these terms do. So you notice that we have a selector here, and we have a curly bracket here, call them curly braces. So we have this, we have a property, we have a column, then we have a value, then we have a semicolon, then we have the closing curly brace. So don't worry, all this should be very easy to understand by the time I'm done. So let's get into more detail. Now we see that the selector, the job of the selector is to select elements, HTML elements that need to be styled on a web page. So with it, you can specify an HTML element that you wish to style. Maybe you wish to add color, or you need to change the size of that element, or you need to do something else. You first of all have to select what element on that web page do you want to style. So to do this, you can simply do this by writing out the HTML elements in this selector point, this place where you have selector. Just write out the HTML element there, or you can write out the class of that HTML element, or you can write out the ID of that HTML element. There are many other ways you can select an element on the web page that you need to style, but we're just going to go with these three for now. When we get into the demo, you will see how everything works, and it will just become very easy for you to understand. So let's progress. Now we have the property. You can choose the property of an element you wish to style. A property could be um, the size of the element, it could be the color, it could be the position, it could be padding, it could be so many other things. So let's assume that I already selected a p tag and I want to add a property of color. That's the thing I want to change about that. The content of that p tag is color. That is the paragraph tag. The property I want to change for that paragraph is color. So I'll just need to specify color here. So the next thing I would have to do after that would be to specify the value of that property. So for instance, if the property I indicated initially was color, my value could be something like red, blue, green, or any other color. So, but you should note that the value that you are specifying must match the property. For instance, you cannot set a property of color and set a value of 2 pixels because pixel is for size on the screen. So it doesn't really match. It can never work. Same way, you cannot set something like size and a property of size and you are specifying red. It will never work. It's even illogical. So, but it could happen. You need to know the values for a certain property. So we're going to look at an example now. Let's look at this example. So we have this HTML document here that has a tag, a p tag that has content. This is Studihub. And now I want to change the content that of this is Studihub to red. I want to make the content red. So what I will first of all do is that I would select which element on the page do I need to change its content to red. I've selected it, which is the p tag. Now, what property do I need to change for that content? I need to change the color property. So I will specify the property here, color. Now, what new value do I want to assign to that color property? I would specify it here, red. And this would be what would happen on the web browser. It will change that color property for the p tag to red. So it will display this is Studihub in red. It's that simple. Now you can add more properties inside of these curly braces. The only thing you need to do is that for every property you add, for every property and value that you add, you must add this semicolon to show that this is where this property ends. Then you add another one, and you add another one, and you add another one. So that's how simple it is to write basic CSS. So let us proceed. We'll be looking at a live demo video on how to write CSS. Let's watch. It's now time for us to work on a project that will give you the feel of building your first website. So I would advise that if you haven't installed the code editor like we mentioned earlier, please do install it so that you can tag along. Now is the time for you to open up your code editor and follow me side by side. So let's get started. Throughout the project, we are going to be using certain tags that I have not even mentioned here, but these are some of the tags that you will come across. We have the body tag, we have the section tag, we have the div tag, we have the h1 tag, we even have the italic tag. So we might use and we might not use some of these tags because as we update this class, we change the project to become even more interesting. Now, you can find the project files here and download the files that you need for the project. So you can visit this link, bit.ly/web-dev-project-files-2020 and get the files that you need. So I would advise, I would also recommend that you create a new folder where you would begin to work on this project. So create a new folder, name the folder My First Website. And every file that you are creating, you would create it within that folder. So it will make the entire work easy and enjoyable for you. Let us proceed. Now, this is the website that you are going to be building. This picture of this beautiful lady here, you're going to replace it with your own beautiful picture, because this is your own website that you are going to create. And this link here, you're going to create it and replace it with a link to your social media account. This write up here, although it is junk write up, you are going to replace this write up with something about yourself. You just write something, anything about yourself, no matter how short it is. This name, you're going to replace it with your own name. This profile.net, you could change it to any website name you want. But let us see how we are going to build this simple looking website for yourself. So let us proceed. Let's dive right in.